Hey, Cam Dunlap here, right in front of 191 Canastillo Street, a vacant house that I just pulled up from the Vacant House data feed. Very excited about this opportunity because it has zero mortgage balance. It has a low purchase price, the last transfer, got good value, out-of-state owner, and a phone number. Those are things that really make this an interesting lead to me, and it's right here in my backyard, which is why I'm here as opposed to sending a bird dog. So what I wanted to do is shoot a quick video just talking about how to, most efficiently use the Vacant House data feed so that you can get the most out of it. A couple of things to point out. Number one, I'm always looking for houses with phone numbers because I want to call the owner. And there's a script within the Vacant House data feed that's extremely effective that gives you the best possible chance of making a great first impression. So where I can call a seller, pardon me, I'm going to, because that saves me the time and the expense of using direct mail. So what I'll do is I'll actually use the filter, and I'll filter out properties with phone numbers, and then I'll go back and filter out properties without. The ones with, I'll call. The ones without, I'll use our direct mail system. So back to the phone. If I'm talking to a seller, a couple of pro tips, if you will, that'll help you really do a lot better with it. First, don't ever mention the word vacant. When you're talking to the owner of a vacant house, don't say the word vacant. What you'll do is put them on the defense. They're likely hoping that no one is noticing that the house is vacant, and if you tell them that you know it is, that will almost for sure bother them and put you at a disadvantage. So leave the word vacant out of your conversation until it makes sense or until they bring it up. So that's the key. Another thing is when you're talking to a seller about their vacant house, don't tell them that that house is on a list like the Vacant House data feed. That will not serve you. In fact, that may really bother the seller. So for example, if they're inclined to be bothered by the fact that you know the house is vacant, and then you tell them that you got it on a list of vacant houses, that could really, really bug them. And we're seeing that happen in the marketplace, and we'll have a client call and say, well, I just had talked to a seller and they weren't happy with me. Why not? Well, these are a couple of the very common reasons why. So don't say the word vacant, and don't tell them that their house is on a list. Okay, so now to the direct mail side of that. When you're using direct mail to contact the owners of these vacant houses, using our mail manager, you can do it with a couple of clicks. It's very simple. You create a list, and there's a whole tutorial video on how to do this. I'm just talking about it because it's a best practice. So create that list and then send the mail piece that you feel most comfortable with. There are all sorts of templates. You can edit those. You can create your own custom letter. And we've just recently added the yellow letter to the system now, so you can send, frankly, what I think is about the best example of a yellow letter I've ever seen in terms of the size, the way it's folded, the small envelope, the handwritten font, the yellow tablet pad type page. It's done really, really well, and we're very proud of it. So utilize our mail manager when you don't have a phone number, and you'll get responses from the owners of vacant houses, generally speaking, at a much higher response rate than typical direct mail. And the reason is because these people are so qualified. If you own a vacant house, chances are you'd certainly consider selling it if you're not extraordinarily motivated to sell it. So let's reach out to those sellers whichever way we can. Certainly the phone is the most efficient, least expensive, and if not, by direct mail. Now, another couple points on direct mail. When you send a letter to the owner of a vacant house, if you don't get a response from that owner, don't get discouraged. In fact, it's true that you need to reach out and gently touch that owner perhaps as many as 7 times before they're going to respond. Now, some will respond, on the first mailing because they're really, really motivated, and others are going to sort of ignore your first one. They might take notice of the second one. The third one they're going to think about. The fourth one, okay, yeah, I probably ought to call this person. And then, they finally respond. So what I find is some people will, send out a mailing of 100 pieces, and they might get 1 or 2 calls when they were expecting 8 or 10, and they're very disappointed and they think the system doesn't work. No, that's not it at all. You got to think about the way people respond. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if you're like me and you sort your mail over the trash. I do. And I throw all kinds of stuff out. Some things I literally have to see several times before I'll respond. That's just human nature. It's who we are. Our mailboxes are full of stuff we're, not at least initially interested in, and that creates a challenge for us. Not so much in terms of being successful, but just understanding the process and avoiding feeling like it doesn't work. That's the key. What you're doing works. If it's not working, change what you're doing, or be patient and continue to send that message. That's very important for you to understand. And remember, you're one deal away from paying for the Vacant House data feed for the next 10 years. In fact, you may be watching this video saying, yeah, I've done several deals from this thing and it's paid for the next 20 years. I mean, think about it. One deal really, it pays for an awful lot of tools for an awful long time. So, keep that in mind. Another tool that we've discovered that's really powerful, it's called Sly Broadcast. You can Google that, Sly, S-L-Y, Sly Broadcast. And what it does is it literally sends a voicemail message to cell phones without the phone ever ringing, which is pretty neat. So a lot of the phone numbers within the Vacant House data feed are in fact cell phone numbers. We don't have any way of filtering them, which are, which aren't, but we know that a lot of them are. And by using Sly Broadcast, you may be able to get to those owners without having to talk to them directly if that's uncomfortable for you. So you could record a message and send a relatively generic message and send it out to, say, 100 phone numbers on the Vacant House data feed. That'll, it'll determine which of those phone numbers are cell phones, and those that are, it will leave a message right on their voicemail without the phone ever ringing. And that's not unusual. I get voicemails from people who are calling me, who I know, and the phone never rings. It just goes direct to voicemail. So this is sort of a tool to do that. It's called Sly Broadcast. Very powerful tool that we're excited about. So couple of, just to sort of recap, a couple of the main points. Number one, if you've got a phone number, call it. Use the script, stay away from the word vacant, and don't tell them the house is on a list. There's nothing to be gained from doing that. In fact, you may alienate the seller, and they may never want to do business with you, where I'll call them, and I don't mean me, but maybe me, I'll call them a couple of days later, stay away from those words, and do a deal on a house, on that house that you could have done a deal on, but because you said the wrong thing, maybe you didn't know. That's the point of this video, and now that costs you the deal. So be careful. Again, don't use the word vacant, and don't tell them their house is on a list. Also, make sure that when you're using direct mail, you're patient. You hit them with your message more than once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6 times before you judge whether or not they're going to respond. One mailing does not make a business. All right, so think about direct mail as an ongoing tool that you'll use wisely, because there is a cost involved, but that will yield very substantial results for you. I mean, it's irrefutable that direct mail is very powerful when it comes to real estate investing. And also keep in mind the yellow letter. Some of you guys have been around the Vacant House data feed for a while. You don't know that we added it. Well, we did, and it's really exciting because the yellow letter is one of the highest response rate direct mail pieces I've ever seen. It looks like it's coming from Aunt Susan, and the open rate is very high, and the response rate is very, very high. So if you combine the yellow letter, which has by design a very high open rate and response rate, you combine that with the owners of vacant houses who are categorically motivated, now you've got a real winning combination. It's very exciting. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're using the Vacant House data feed. It is making an enormous difference in my business and in many of our clients, and I know it will yours. So let us know what you think. Stay in touch. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.